Well, hello everyone and welcome back to Win More TV. Here we are on the eve of the final block of Premier League fixtures, and as always, our two residents, Mark Webster, Paul Nicholson. Gentlemen, good evening. How are we?
Good evening, Phil.
Evening, Phil.
Yeah, obviously, Mark, you've been there in Milton Keynes from the very start. Looking forward to the climax over these 5 days?
Yeah, I am, and there's been the pressure of trying to dodge Judgment Night, which is pretty plain sailing for the players that remain really in the end. But now it's that final tilt, and there's no margin for error for some of the players now. Some have got a little margin, but it's going to be tense. Some players have got more work to do than others, and once again, it looks like Michael Van Gerwen is heading to the top spot, like we were so used to until last year.
Well, I was going to come on to that, and you brought it up now, so we'll touch on it now. The fact that he's been so inconsistent for Michael's standards, yet he still tops the table as we speak, is that worrying for the rest of the field, Paul?
I think it is to a certain degree. I don't think we should get carried away. And I think Michael's approach to this next block, obviously to get himself into the playoffs, I think he's approaching it like that too. He's not taking anything for granted. Now, we have to look at 2021 as a whole, because as well as he played in the last block, which was spectacular, it's great to see as well from the former world number one. I'm still getting used to saying that as well. But he hasn't won a tournament this year. And he hasn't won this Premier League yet. He knows that. He's still got a lot of work to do, like all the other players have got to as well. Mark said that really well. But for me, he's got to stay on point, and he's got to stay in that sort of irresistible zone if he is going to get this title. And if he can get this title by the end of this campaign, you're going to see one giant sigh of relief.
And Mark, big relief for everyone. The fans return on Monday. 1,000 a night. PDC have released 2 nights sold out. The other 3 very close to selling out. Does the dynamic of the Premier League change because of that?
I wouldn't say massive change. I think it's great for everyone involved, the PDC, the broadcaster, Sky, the players, the fans. I think just to get that taster back with 1,000 there, I'm more pleased for the likes of Dimitri, Johnny and Jose de Souza, who've, they've not experienced the Premier League in any sort of imagination with the crowds they're going to get in Milton Keynes, but just something for them to play against. And and again, it can play into a match now, isn't it? They're going to get involved, the crowd, that's for sure. They're going to be vocal because they've been away for so long. Be interesting to see how the guys perform, particularly like Nathan Aspinall, Michael Van Gerwen. I think they well documented in saying they're glad to have them back.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see the league table. Michael has a 2-point gap to Nathan Aspinall and Dimitri Vandenberg, and then it gets interesting. Jose and Johnny both on 14, Gary Anderson on 12. Below that, James Wade and Peter Wright. Are we excluding those 2 from making the final 4 just yet, or do we think that they could squeak it in there, Paul?
I'm not sure about Peter's position. Obviously, it's been well documented that he has had some issues away from the dartboard, and I think his mind is more focused on that. So I think no matter what Snakebite does, I think other people are going to be in better positions come the end of the cluster. But we've written James Wade off maybe microscopically at our peril in the past. I actually tipped him to make the top 4 when he was brought into the field at the expense of Gerwyn Price after his positive test. It hasn't worked out smoothly for him over the course of the campaign, but he has had great performances. He's always had great timing in his career, so I'm not excluding him, but I just get the feeling that other players are at a higher level consistency-wise. And someone like Clayton, someone like De Souza, I think one of those 2 has got to be in there just to add that extra spice, where I feel that the likes of Dimitri, Michael and Nathan will probably make it based on the way they've been playing.
Webby, Gary Anderson just above those 2, 12 points. Does he need a clean sweep, or will 3 wins from 4 squeak him in there?
It's tight, isn't it, Phil? He probably maybe 3 in a draw, but the first game is massive, and the first game of this block is him against Johnny Clayton, and that's a massive game. Johnny Clayton beats him, that's enough of a gap then between him and Gary. So Gary's just got to prolong his hopes. He's got a great chance, and he's probably at home now thinking of the games he's sort of where he's dropped points, because he has dropped a lot of points from winning positions. But he looked good in his last couple of games, didn't he? Particularly against Dimitri Van den Berg. And that was the game where I expected Gary to do that. I thought he wants to show Dimitri he's still got it. And he said his motivation is to, even if he doesn't make the top four, is to upset someone else's chances. But yeah, I agree with Paul. I think Peter Ryan, I think James won't make the playoffs either. Gary probably needs three and a draw, and then it's in the hands of the other players. But yeah, that game, the first one, is in front of the crowd. Johnny playing with Gary Anderson. It's a massive game.
Not just that one, the whole narrative of night one back in Milton Keynes, it could all be on the line here, because it's going to pave the way for the other three. But Johnny Clayton and Gary Anderson, Jose de Souza against Dimitri Van den Berg, Nathan Aspinall against Michael Van Gerwen, and James Wade against Peter Wright. Those first three could have huge consequences to the other nights. And I'll take Nathan against Michael. If Michael beats Nathan, are we assuming the Green Machine is almost home and hosed? And if Nathan loses, then he starts to sweat a little bit.
Yeah, I think the narrative of that game is probably the biggest one when it comes to night one. But when I was looking through the fixtures, that one piqued my interest a little bit, Phil, but there was one thing that grabbed me more than anything else. It's the fact that on the first three nights of the cluster, Johnny Clayton is playing early. So when he plays early, he has got that position of someone who is maybe 4 or 5 groups back before the end of a major championship in golf. They can make their position felt before somebody plays. Now, Aspinall and Van Gerwen are going to know a lot about what Clayton has done when they play the first three nights. So I think the look of the draw, which you sometimes get within the Premier League, I think it's going to work for Clayton. If he can just get that fast start, he's going to put huge pressure on the likes of Aspinall if they slip up early. So Aspinall has to be on it right there. If he's not, he's going to be dragged into it.
Touching on what Paul said there, Mark, which fixtures have you pinpointed on night one that have pivotal consequences to the other three?
They all have, really, don't they? The first one, Johnny and Gary's massive, because Johnny wins, he puts a 4-point buffer between him and Gary, and it's a long way to claw back that. But the Aspinall-Michael Van Gerwen game has got some serious repercussions, more so for Nathan. He came into the last block having lost one game. He could be now losing his third game on the trot if he loses to Michael. That's 4. And he's feeling the pressure. I think he's in a rush to get to that magic sort of 19 points, isn't he? And the longer he stays away from it, he's pretty much there. But 3 defeats on the trot, and 2 of them defeats were 8-6. He had chances to get a point. He could be there. So it's how it's playing on his mind. I do fear for Nathan. I think the first night is important for him, especially with the form Johnny was in. Johnny got that win against Nathan last time out, which was massive. But yeah, I do fear for Nathan because he's been so good in this Premier. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he makes the top 4 because he really deserves it. But it's a big 4 days ahead now. And the players got to give it everything. It's the last block and then that last push for finals night. So yeah, you just got to leave everything up there, and all they can do is their best. But yeah, I do particularly fear for Nathan Aspinall in that sort of top 4 or 5 positions.
Do you both think that Michael Van Gerwen beats Nathan Aspinall on night one?
I am not sure about that. Look at what Nathan Aspinall did last year in a similar setting with the Premier League. Obviously, it started with a crowd and then it finished without one. But look at the way he finished the campaign. He was able to find something really deep down when he needed it. Now, if you look at the games he's got, yes, he's got Van Gerwen on the first night, the Tuesday. He's got James Wade early. So that plays into his wheelhouse potentially, but only, like Mark says, if he gets a decent result against Van Gerwen. That he's got such a big, bold nature about it. I can't wait to see it, but I don't know. I think the draw makes it interesting, but with the way that Van Gerwen is just walking around with mojo at the minute, I think he will go in as the favourite, but it's a really tough ask for Nathan.
Mark, for you?
I think Michael beats him. I just think I like Nathan. I really like watching him play. He's one of my favourite players to watch, actually. But I just think Michael's got that. What was interesting about the last 3 games he won, it wasn't always on his terms. We've said Michael's been winning games when it's on his terms. We had to dig deep against Johnny, and he was quite comfortable against James. But that trio of wins was massive, and just that would have been his sort of, I think, favourite 3 days in darts for a long, long time. Just for, I said a long, long time, sort of 18 months. You know, we're judging Michael on wins, aren't we? And I just think that sort of puts to bed that he's not going to get eliminated, even though he's got a bit to do. He's going to make the playoffs. He's back where he wants to be. He wants to go in as the league leader, but I just think there was something about him. And if he approaches the next 4 days right, you know, he could be lifting the Premier League title at the end of the week.
So from there, like we said, if Nathan loses to Michael, he then plays James Wade, Gary Anderson, and finishes with Jose. You alluded to it earlier, Mark. If it doesn't go right, that's a horrible run.
It is, and it's that's how it should be. It's the Premier League, isn't it? And if Nathan does miss out, he's been very unlucky because he's had darts of beating Johnny Clayton in the first game they drew. I think he had a darts beat. Was it Michael van Gerwen in the first time they played? So it could be a lot rosier. He led Dimitri Vandenberg 5-3 as well. He could be sitting really pretty, Nathan, but he's had a fantastic campaign. And I think if at the beginning you said he was in this sort of position, he'd have took it. Yes, he's lost his last 2 games, but one last push for Nathan, and he's had the taste of the playoffs, had the taste of the final, so he'll want it again. But I'd say in that top 5, he's going to feel the pressure more because he's pretty much been there the whole campaign, hasn't he? And he's just sort of looking over his shoulder now, and he'll feel it more. And I don't think Dimitri or Felix enjoying it. Jose, the Saudi debut. Johnny's laid back. He was pleased to be in the Premier League, pleased on his Judgment Day, and now he's in a chance of mixing the top 4. So I think there's different pressures, and there'll be a few more relaxed players than Nathan will be.
Another 2 players we'll have a look at, speaking of them both, is Jose and Dimitri, who play on opening night. Is a point here a good result for both players, Paul?
Probably. I think the narrative from night 1 to night 2, it will change, and it'll change from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, of course. And that's the way we want it with the final cluster, the way things have worked out in 2021. So we'll be having conversations, I'm sure, between us when each night finishes. But when you look at night 1, a point for both right now is not the end of the world, because I don't think we're going to get one of those nights where it's, 3 draws and someone gets a narrow win. We had one of those really early in the campaign, didn't we? Where it was a draw fest.
Yeah.
But a point here, right now, you want to be gaining points. You do not want to be losing a great deal of points. And between these two, the 180 count could get silly. So if they both turn up, I think a draw is very possible and a very, very good result for both.
If Dimitri is to beat Jose, like we spoke about Aspinall, does Jose get a little bit jittery? Because then he has to play Johnny Clayton, Michael van Gerwen, and finishes with the Asp mark. So if Jose can win on opening night, it changes, obviously, his confidence. But if he loses, is it again twitchy for Jose?
Well, it's a little bit edgy, isn't it? I mean, he's not going to be worried. If he's any more laid back, he'll be on the floor, Jose. But I think it's interesting. If he loses and Gary beats Johnny, I think they're all tied then, aren't they?
Yeah.
So then it becomes close. But you keep talking about the fixtures. They're going to be tough. I don't expect Peter Wright to roll over like he did last time. He said he just wasn't in the right headspace. I think there was thought of him having a shoulder problem, but that's not the case. Peter will be he's not going to just be a whipping boy. He's going to have his say, Peter. Don't think he's going to be in the top 4. I don't think he'll make it. But he's going to have his say. So it's going to be tough run-ins all the way through. I mean, we can't be dismissive of the fixtures being Peter Wright and James Wade just because they're the bottom 2. They're going to be dangerous. But, yeah, I think Jose would feel it a little bit. But you know what? Something about me. I think he will go into the top 4 come finals night. And he'll be dangerous when he's there.
Touching on Peter Wright, obviously we know Jo's not in a great space with her back, and we wish her all the very best when she has a second operation. But the constant dart change, and I know it's something he's always done and we always talk about it, but now is it causing problems, Paul? Because we saw him change after a leg, play with them, go back after 3. I know he's always done it, but is it time now where he just has to settle with a set, find some form, find some confidence before he starts chopping and changing again?
I think every time I'm asked this question, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone, or I'm in some sort of whirlpool, just going down into some big water pit, because I know for a fact I'm going to be here in about 6 months' time asking the same of somebody else or being asked the same question. It is who he is. I think I've come to terms with that. I think he's someone who has just got a wall full of darts at home and says, I think I'll use those today. And he is one of those crazy creatures who can use anything. I think the variety aspect of his game is why he's where he is. I think if he'd have stuck with the same stuff all the way through his career, he probably wouldn't be here. He might not have made world champion because he wouldn't have discovered the equipment to get him there. So I'm not going to criticize him or say that it's a mistake. But the fact of the matter is, we all know that there are darts that he throws better than others. And if he can just narrow that down to maybe 3 sets, and I can't believe I'm saying this because I speak to young players and I say, find a set and put all the other ones away for about 4 or 5 months. But with Peter, I think he needs a smaller selection of maybe 3, possibly to 5 sets. And if he can narrow that down, I think he'd be more dangerous. That's just my opinion. I don't know what Mark feels about that, but the variety has got him to where he is. And I don't think we should discount that whatsoever.
Yeah, I kind of echo it. I think he would throw well with the new Mark Webster diamond grips, some skills in there, what do you reckon? But, hey, what Paul said makes the right point. He's world champion. He's been the world number 2. He was in touch condition of world number 1. We can harp on about it. We only talk about it when he has an off night. He just had a couple of them, hasn't he? That's all. And he's headstrong, Peter, and I don't knock him for what he does. He's been successful with it. People ask, I couldn't do it. I don't think Paul could do it as well. I don't think he'd have many success. Not many players could, but he can. And he's going to carry on, isn't it? So, and within the position he's in now, he's definitely going to experiment, isn't he? Because these are like, in a way, 4, not dead rubbers, but he's not going to make the top 4. So just a chance for him to have a little tweak with stuff and then just dust off the Premier League and then attack the rest of the season.
Can you possibly imagine, guys, with him in this position, probably thinking, I don't think I'm going to make playoffs. What can I do to shock people with the kit that I could use? This could be a window for him to use the craziest setup I've ever seen. So he might turn up with a set of darts that are big and bulbous and got some feather flights on the end. I wouldn't be shocked.
We could see the little bulbous one with a 42-inch point, long stem and a kite flight. Let's see how these go. But one narrative with Peter Wright, he plays Michael van Gerwen on the final night. Could be a little bit of a firework display on the last league game for the pair of them.
I mean, when they play each other, it's a bit like Ronaldo playing Messi, isn't it? There's always going to be something there. There's always going to be some sort of narrative or some sort of story. They've called each other out so many times. And it's a bit like when we had rivalries between Manley and Taylor and some others within the game. But whether there's points up for grabs or a title or an exhibition, these two just love to go at it. And it's always, remember when Alex Ferguson used to say it, that Leeds used to get up for Manchester United a lot. Well, no matter what the situation is, Peter Wright always seems to get that extra bit of focus when he plays Michael van Gerwen. So don't discount him on the last night of the Premier League.
So, gentlemen, we've gone around it. We've spoken about it. You know what's coming. I want 4 names off of you that make the top 4 come Thursday night. I don't know if you've already got it in your head who you think, but we'll come to you first, Paul. 4 names. Who makes?
Well, MVG, I think, will top it. I just think he's in a really good place. I think he'll get the points required. I am going to go for Vandenberg. I just think in spots he's looked borderline unplayable. I think he'll get enough. This is where it gets really tricky. I think Clayton will make it. I said he would make it at the beginning. I'm going to stick with that. And I'm going to go with Aspinall. I think that will be our 4. And what I like about that 4 is it's a little different as well, because we didn't have MVG in the finals last year. We obviously haven't had JC in the playoffs because it's his debut season. Same with Vandenberg. And can you just see that the grand scheme of darts is changing, because this looks very different.
For you, Mark?
I agree with the 3 of the 4. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But I think Jose will go in instead of Nathan. But I hope I'm wrong, because I've enjoyed watching Nathan play and the spirit he's played in. But I'm pretty confident that Dimitri, Johnny and Mike will make it. And then it's a flip of a coin with me. I'm just siding with Jose, but I'd love to see Nathan do it. But like Paul said, it's going to be a fantastic finals night, whoever the lineup is, and just having the finals night with Michael Van Gerwen in normal service resume. But we know how different it can be on finals days. Women's just going to be champion, but that's my top 4.
Not finished there though, guys. I'm not letting you off the hook. We've got a final 4. Now, from your final 4, who wins the 2021 Unibet Premier League? And we'll come to you first, Mark, on this one.
I think Michael will be. I think he'll beat Dimitri in the final. I think Dimitri deserves to get to the final. He's been fantastic on his campaign, and then Michael just getting back to where he wants to be, and that performance was key against Dimitri. But the performance of Michael Van Gerwen against Dimitri had to be at his best, because Dimitri is fantastic as well. He's been like it throughout, and I just can't see Dimitri not making the final. So them two are my finalists, with Michael winning.
Paul?
I feel like I should agree with Mark, but there's a little gremlin inside me that thinks that Dimitri's going to win this. I just get the feeling that 2021, he seems to have cracked something. I know that breakthrough at the match play last year was hugely documented, but there was a huge gap between that and his next title. But the fact that he's played well in this Premier League, and the fact that I believe he's going to make the top 4, I just think that he's in a really good place for winning at the minute. As to who he's going to beat in the final, it's a real stab in the dark. But I think it could be the same final. I think it could be Dimitri versus Michael Van Gerwen, and we could be seeing them go at it for years from here. So I'm going to go for Dimitri over Michael in a really tight final.
Gentlemen, absolute pleasure talking to you here for Win More TV, previewing the final stages of the Premier League. And remember, fans return, so we cannot wait. Gentlemen, absolute pleasure to have you on board with Winmail. And remember, follow all Winmail social platforms for updates on the Premier League and all new product launches going forward. Thanks very much, guys.
Cheers, Bill.
See ya.